Hey y'all, welcome to my X Talk weekly-ish. It has not been every week for a while, but weekly-ish series that I am working on. Oh my gosh, what is that on my finger? Anyway, weekly, I think it's from my my lip stain. Weekly-ish series where I am just talking about whatever happens to be on my heart, whatever I want to talk about in the moment. And I really wanted to jump on and talk about your calling versus your can, because it's something that I have been, I wouldn't say struggling with, but something that's been mulling in the back of my mind for quite a while. Because when I started my healing journey, I've had so many people tell me, and I had this sense of obligation that I owed it somehow to humanity to heal as many people as I possibly could, because I had this because I had this gift, because I had this ability. And it never felt 100% aligned. It never felt 100% aligned, most specifically with my personality or with what I felt my calling was. But it was really hard for me to discern until I got all of the shoulds out of my head. I had to get everybody else's thoughts and perceptions out of my head, because people have been telling me what they think I should do for a while, and always with the best intention. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I also believe in encouraging things in people when you see them, because they may not see them themselves. So if you see that somebody is really good at art, singing, photography, anything like that, I always love to speak life into people, because we can't always see our own gifts. So not that there's anything wrong with the things that people have encouraged me to do, because they're like, you're really great at this, you're really great at this, you should definitely do this, you should definitely do this, because it comes from a really good place. So I don't have a problem with that. But it took me kind of quieting all that noise and really sitting with, what is my actual calling? And the thing is, I've known it all along, but all of that other stuff just kind of clouded it, and really just had me in a place of deep thought, not knowing how to move forward, not knowing what I was really supposed to be doing, because I wasn't just listening to my calling. And so it's been something that I've been sitting with. I wanted to share because I'm sure it resonates with at least one of you, and maybe you're somewhere in the same position, because there's a lot of things that we can do, right? My son all the time is telling me that I should do a cooking show, or open my own restaurant, or go on holiday baking championship. And I love all of those things, and I love cooking, and I love baking. Time in the kitchen is really meditative and therapeutic for me, but only when I'm doing it on my terms, right? So a show like baking championship, or any of those cooking shows where they're like putting pressure on, I don't love cooking if there's any pressure involved. So it's something that I can do, but it's not something that I feel called to do on any kind of a large stage. It's something that is reserved for me, the people I care about. I put a lot of love into my food. I put a lot of intention into my food. So it is something that I can do, but I don't really feel called to do that. There's a lot of things that we all can do, right? There's a lot of things that I can do. I can heal people, and what I've come to really just embrace is really incredible. The gifts that I've nurtured, and I would say my spiritual journey, I would say my whole life has been a spiritual journey on some level, but I really started leaning into it about 5 years ago. I actually began Reiki. My son, who is now 23, had to be about like 2, somewhere around there. So it's been over 20 years since I started introducing myself to things, and I've always had an inkling and an attraction to metaphysical, spiritual, that kind of thing. But I would really say I started leaning in about 5 years ago, and doing distance Reiki and doing deeper healing work. It's been really incredible. But I think I was called into it not so much because I am supposed to do this on a large stage, because I needed to heal myself. I had so much me that needed to heal. And it took me healing other people for a good 2-3 years to even turn around and be like, maybe I should be doing this with me. And I think that was why I was guided toward it all along, was because in order to be my fullest self, in order to step into my power and step into my fullest expression, I really had to take a look at the trauma that I really didn't even know was there. And you can ask people who know me. For the longest time, I thought I was fine. I'm like, no, I'm fine. It's fine. I'm fine. I'm totally fine. I was not totally fine. I was anything but fine. And because I have the kind of personality where I'm always taking care of other people before I'm taking care of myself, it took me learning this gift, learning this ability, and seeing how it impacted other people, seeing how it helped other people, to turn around to myself and be like, maybe I need to be helping myself in this way. Because I always knew. I have random solid knowings that are kind of pillars or cornerstones for me, but then I have all this other stuff that just it it just jumbles my brain and makes it difficult to focus sometimes. And so I always had this solid knowing that you can't really heal other people until you can heal yourself. And the more I started exploring the metaphysical, the healing, the energy, the light worker world, the more I started realizing how many of these people are not healed themselves. They're only healing from a place of avoiding their own stuff. And that can be conscious, that can be subconscious. Most of the times I think it's subconscious, because I know it, at least it was for me. But I always knew you can only heal to the level that you are healed. But I also had this huge blockage of, I don't know how to heal my own stuff, because it's really easy for me to get to a space of detachment, which is why I feel like healing work, energy work, light work is something that I'm able to do. I wouldn't say easily now, not easily then, but it's something that has been an easier path for me, because it's really easy for me to detach when I don't know you. When I am not invested in or attached to the outcome, I can detach super easy. I can dissociate super easy. That is a leftover trauma response that, you can see as good as bad. It is what it is. So when it comes to other people, I can do this work so much easier than when it comes to either me or somebody that I really care about. If you're really close to me, it takes me some real deep intentionality to get to a place of detachment. But I was like, I was not happy with I was not happy with the fact that I felt like I couldn't do it with me. And anytime I find something that I can't do, it just challenges me to do it. I have an attitude for a good portion of it, because I don't like when things are not easy for me, because so much is easy for me. When I run up against something that is a little bit of a challenge, it's really frustrating at first, but I'm also, there's this part of my personality where I'm like, but I'm not a punk, so I'm gonna figure this out. So I started sitting with myself. Those of you who have been with me for a while may remember I did a series of energy activations, meditation activations, and I was just like, I'm gonna do my work. I'm going to do the energy work that I need, but I'm going to share it, right? I'm going to share it with whoever is interested. And that is really where I started looking at me, uncovering my traumas, looking at why I do what I do, looking at why I'm in this space of life that I'm in, looking at how I ended up in the relationships that I did, how I got, how my childhood trauma replayed in my adult life, because I was completely out of touch with it. I had no idea some of the wounds that I had, that not only did I need to heal, but that were really showing up in my life, but I had no awareness. So it wasn't until I turned inward and I started doing my own work that, one, I got more in touch with my ability, with what I could do, But I started understanding how important it is to really, 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 really look at my own shit if I, in any capacity, am going to be in a position to look at other people's shit. That was something that was really important to me. So I don't know, that may have been a year or 2 years where I really was just focusing on me, and I pulled back from the deeper healing work that I was doing with others, because I also noticed that when I would do work on other people, when I would do distance Reiki, when I would do the deeper healing work that I do, I don't necessarily have a name with it, but it felt like it went beyond Reiki. Like at some point I felt like I'm not just doing Reiki anymore. This is something else. So Reiki is a very specific modality where you are engaging with certain energy. But there was a point when I was doing healing work where I was like, I'm engaging with my ancestors now. I'm engaging with a different energy when I do the work where I can tap into somebody's energy and I can manipulate the energy and move blockages and heal people and do these things. And thank you to anybody who I worked with in those early years, because your feedback really helped me see, oh, this is really something. This is really actually helping people. Because I tend to minimize everything. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. But I don't really, it takes a lot for something to really hit me and for me to really see, oh, I'm having an impact here. But the other thing that I noticed is it was having an impact on me, and it was taking a lot out of me. It takes a lot out of me to do that deeper work. I remember one time, a friend of mine calling me up and going through something, and I wasn't in a place in the moment to really sit with it and really meditate. I think I was driving, so I wasn't in a place where I could just stop and attend to it right that moment, but I could feel like an urgency in her request. So I pulled over, and immediately it felt like there was a brick laying on my chest. And later on, when I did so I made time for like a second just to kind of tap in and give her a few words of encouragement and let her know, like, you know, I do have a few things to do, some stuff with the kids, I got to get them settled, but I will sit with this later on tonight. And when I did, I didn't do what I know now is not only crucial, it's not even negotiable, to protect myself before I do the work, to release after I do the work. Like, my spiritual hygiene had to go to an entirely different level in order for me to be able to do this work, because other people's stuff, if I don't do that, it sits in my body. I am extremely sensitive, I am extremely empathic, and I absorb other people's energy in a way that I did not understand that I did. And when I do this work where I'm actually working deeply with somebody, I can feel what they're going through, and it's so visceral in my body. And it would take me so long, until I started being diligent about practicing, it would take me a really long time to kind of remove myself from whatever work that I did. And it was just really taking a toll on me. I would do sessions and I would have to like sleep for 2-3 days, because that's how much it took out of me. So this friend that I initially tapped in, and I could feel a brick on her chest. And I tapped in later on that night, and I had to do some work where I kind of lifted that energy off of her. I gave her some relief from that energy. And I remember I called her the next day, and I was like, and I again, this was a rookie mistake. I did the work before I went to sleep, and I didn't do any of my hygiene for that particular session. And I remember waking up the next day feeling like I was dying. Like, I couldn't wake up. I was lethargic. I was achy. I felt awful. And I called her to see how she felt amazing, right? By that next morning, she was like, oh my God, I feel like a weight has been lifted. I feel amazing. Meanwhile, I'm like, I'm struggling to get out of bed because I absorbed it, and I didn't have the diligence at the time, or the real solid understanding of what I need to do in order to do that kind of work. So because of how much it was impacting me, I switched gears a little bit. Another friend of mine put me onto the Akashic Records, and that energy is just so much lighter for me to engage with. And it is a modality, it's a vehicle that allows me to kind of tap in without really moving or manipulating energy personally myself in a big way. I can still do the deeper work. I still do the deeper work. For some people, it's more so word of mouth. It is not something that I advertise anymore, because another thing that I learned is that I'm not necessarily supposed to be releasing everything for somebody. So I can give somebody a little bit of relief, but a lot of times there's work that my client needs to do that I don't need to be doing for them. Sometimes when you have such an abrupt healing where you go from one extreme to the next. So let's say you go from being really, really depressed to feeling such a relief, such a weight lifted, that you're really, really high and you're really feeling good. Sometimes that's too abrupt because it's not sustainable. That other stuff is going to come back around if you didn't actually do the internal work to get there. If I just got you there, you're going to feel amazing for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. And not saying that that's not a good thing, because sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need that exposure to a higher vibration to really give us hope that we can get there. But the fact of the matter is, you cannot avoid the work. You cannot avoid facing and looking at why you were in that lower vibration and really going through the steps to letting it go. And I realize sometimes I'm creating for people leaps that are, again, while sometimes necessary, are not always sustainable. And they're clearly having a strong impact on me, but they just didn't feel sustainable. They didn't feel gradual. I didn't always feel like I was doing a good thing by just fixing something for somebody. So I switched gears, and I just started offering more Akashic Record readings, which I love that energy because it doesn't take as much from me. Most recently, I am beginning to feel things physically when I do them. So I have to explore that a little bit more. And that's a reason where I only offer them a few times a year, because I'm also huge and such a big advocate about the fact that you don't need me. You don't need any reader. You don't need any healer. You don't need anybody. All you need to do is turn inward. Everybody has that ability. I know a lot of people debate on whether or not, we're all psychic, we're not psychic. We all have the intuitional ability and the guidance around us to work for us, to look into our stuff. I don't believe we all have the ability to tap into other people's stuff, because I think that comes with a level of responsibility that if you don't have the integrity to handle it, I don't think everybody, belongs kind of messing in other people's stuff. But we all have the ability to work on our own stuff. It's not easy and it takes work. So I'm not saying that it's never appropriate to seek guidance or seek help or seek healing outside of yourself, because sometimes I'm really careful about the word need, but sometimes you are in a place where going to somebody can kind of get the ball rolling for you, or you need that assistance, like a training wheel. You might need that assistance for a little while, but I always make it a point to turn people back around to themselves, because I'm like, you don't need me. You don't. And I never want to be in a position where anybody feels like they need to have a reading with me or they need to have work with me. I help where I can, but I just don't do well with really feeling needed at that level. So the Akashic Records is nice because it kind of just opens the doorway for you to start exploring your stuff. So I get different insights and different downloads, and it works really well with my specific psychic abilities, and it doesn't drain me the way that some of the other work does. So I'm like, I'm gonna kind of shift my focus to doing Akashic readings a few times a year. I'm not gonna do this work all the time, but it was a really important shift for me because for the longest time I felt like I was obligated, because I had these gifts, because I had these abilities, that I was obligated to share it on a big stage, to share it in a widespread way. But I'm only one person. That's not sustainable for me. That doesn't work for me. And I really struggled with feeling like I couldn't, I just couldn't serve people in the capacity that I felt obligated to serve people. So I felt like I should be doing readings every day. I should be doing this every day. I have this ability, so I should be helping as many people as I possibly can. But that just left me empty. That left me in a space where my health was being compromised because I'm absorbing all this stuff. And even once I learned the tools and became very diligent with releasing, I went from feeling like I got hit by a car after sessions to just feeling really tired and lethargic. So it did help, but it didn't help enough to where I can do that work on a regular basis, or that I want to do that work on a regular basis. I would much rather use my energy and my talents to turn people around to themselves, and yes, help where I can, but it's not my calling. And I've always been clear of my calling. My calling is to share my story and share my voice. That's it. That's it. That's the only thing that I have ever consistently come back to and consistently come back to and consistently come back to. So no matter what I can do, and it doesn't mean that I don't feel called in the interim to help or to do other things. Like I said, I still do the Reiki. I still do that other healing work, but I don't do it nearly on the scale that I thought I needed to monetize and to get to this place where I'm healing the world. That's not my job. It's my job to maintain my vibration to at the highest possible level that I can, and more than anything, just be an example. Just be someone that holds my light steady, because that truly has an impact on the world. That me going around and trying to fix the world in a way where I'm being compromised, my energy is being devastated, that doesn't serve anybody. So I just wanted to jump on and share. I know I don't really share a little bit about my backstory because it's not something that I really broadcast anymore. For a while I was, really excited with all the people that I was working with and the impact that I was having and the ways that I was able to help them. And again, not that I'm not still excited about it, but I've learned that there has to be balance and that I have to be clear about what my calling actually is. So if somebody approaches me, I usually know right away if this is somebody that I feel called to work with, or somebody where I'm like, I can do a reading, or I can do a bracelet, or I can do something on a smaller scale, but I no longer feel this call to fix people, because I have learned how strong our internal guidance system is to fix ourselves. And really, again, if you are working with somebody who is not constantly turning you back around to yourself and saying, you have the power to do this work on your own. I can give you the tools and you can do this for yourself. If you're working with somebody that is keeping you dependent on them, that's not it. That is, in this realm, that is not it. Somebody who is, and I'm not saying if you're working with somebody for a specific amount of time and a specific goal, that's different. I'm saying people who are like, I need to be your one and only healer. I need to be your one and only everything. And you need me. Anybody that perpetuates a feeling of that you need them, that's not it. And even though I've always turned people back around to themselves, I still had this thing in the back of my head, like, I need to be doing this, but it just didn't fit my personality. It did not fit my personality. sharing my story and sharing my voice are the only two things I really feel called to do. And I've neglected my voice for the majority of my life. My singing voice. Singing music is my passion. That is where my heart lives. And I felt like I was letting people down. I felt like I needed to show up more. I felt like there was always more that I needed to do. And I really just had to come to a place of solace that I don't. I don't need to extend myself in that way. I can simply share my story, share what I've learned, share my voice, which I am, in the process of healing and getting back to my music, my singing, my writing. Because at my heart, that's my calling. I'm a storyteller. I'm a singer. I do this work and I do it whenever I feel called. A lot of times there's not even payment involved. Like, I have come to a place where I value my work. So I used to just do everything for free because I felt that I guess you could say healer's remorse of like, I shouldn't be charging for this, but it's like, no, my energy, my time are very, very valuable. So it's not that I didn't get to a place where I charge, but money is never number one for me. It is never a number one motivator. And if it is, that's a clear sign for me that it's not meant for me to do it if I'm just doing it for the money. So a lot of the healing work I do is behind the scenes. I don't broadcast it. It's really, really a word of mouth thing, and I'm content with that. I know that I'm doing the work that I'm meant to do on the scale that I'm meant to do it. I don't have to work so hard to monetize it. And I think that part of the journey is what really stressed me out to the point where I took a step back and I looked at it from a different angle. And another spiritual friend of mine pointed out to me, like, you're trying to be two different people and you need to integrate all of it into one. And it's simple, but it's true, and it struck me, and it really prompted me to really, really take a deep look at the fact that I'm not called to do everything I can do. I can lean into what makes me happy, what brings me joy, what feels like I'm satisfying my calling, and I can do this work and not feel like I'm abandoning it, but I can do it in a way that's more sustainable and that works for me. So I don't know who out there may be listening to this and may be thinking to themselves, there's something that you feel pressured to do, or there's something that you feel obligated to do, but it just doesn't resonate. It just doesn't feel, you just don't feel at home in that space. And I think so many of us know our calling. We can hear that call because it's so clear, but there's so much noise in the world that distracts us, that takes us off track, that confuses us, that fogs our mind, that we end up really, really far from where we're supposed to be. But I promise you, the road to get there isn't as long as you think. You just have to decide that you're ready for that, and then take whatever baby steps you feel inspired to take. I always say inspired action is the best, but sometimes you just need to act to get the ball rolling. So keep that in mind too. I'm a huge proponent, I can't talk. I'm a big advocate for inspired action, right? Actually doing what we feel like we should be doing, listening to our intuition. I'm also a big advocate for not only sitting with your intuition, but paying attention to it more, because it's talking to you all the time. And if it's quiet, it means you're not listening to it. And once you start listening to it, it gets louder, it gets more consistent, it gets easier to discern from emotional reactions to things. Your intuition, I always tell people, your intuition doesn't really come across with a feeling. It comes across very matter of fact. So I'm always big about turning people back around to their own intuition, and your calling. Just sit with it, get inspired action if you can, but if you can't, just take a step. Just take some step of action to kind of get the ball rolling, let the universe know, like, okay, I'm ready to start this journey. And it may not be on the timetable that you think it should be. That's a whole other conversation, but that's another lesson I had to learn. Things may not happen in the timeline that your ego wants them to, but it's always on time. So yeah, I think that's enough for now.